What's up, YouTube family? This is K Steps with Undiluted TV, and I just decided that I'd put together this little compilation to show you guys what's really going on in America and what's really going on with all of these pussy, sissy, white cops.
What? You better tell your friend to get back here.
Hey, bro.
Why is you hitting me?
Let him go, dude.
Come back here right now with your phone.
What?
Tell your friend to come back here right now.
Why? Bro, we can just forget all about this and run, bro.
Who is?
Hey, bro, let him go and we...
You're coming in my fucking property. You understand that?
Why? Let me go.
No, you
we'll leave.
Property. I'm gonna fucking kill you.
We're gonna leave, bro.
Tell your friend to come here right now.
We're on the way.
Leave.
No, I'm not.
We're on their way. You stay put. No.
No, I cannot.
You came to the wrong house.
I didn't mean to...
Get your phone out.
Okay, well, who's this guy coming into my yard?
This is one of my friends.
Okay.
I just got my ass.
Figure out what's going on, and you guys are acting stupid.
I'm not involved in it.
Okay, well, tell your friend to sit over here.
I'm not involved in it.
I don't give a fuck who is. You understand that?
Why are you doing this to me then? Right.
Because your friend's being a fucking idiot.
Then why you gotta do this to me?
Because tell your friend to come over here then.
Why are you
Tell him
on the ground and stuff? You gotta let him go. If you want.
No, you're not.
I'm not.
You're trespassing in my fucking yard. You understand?
The what? How? You gonna shoot us? How?
Trespassing in my fucking yard.
My friend. We weren't trespassing. We don't.
Where do you
We
live
can
at?
just. Why are you doing this to me?
Because you're trespassing in my fucking yard.
We're not trespassing. He just walked in here. We can leave, bro.
You're not.
We didn't trespass. We didn't trespass, y'all. What do we do?
I'm doing that.
Bro, you don't. The what? You gonna shoot us? How?
Trespassing in my fucking yard.
Tonight, the parents of a South suburban teen say an off-duty police officer went too far in this confrontation over his yard.
As you can see in this footage, this off-duty police officer has this young teen down on the ground. Yes, he is in his yard, down on the ground. He's choking him. He keeps cussing at him. And all of this because his other little friend, the little dude that has the phone, his other little friend was sitting on this guy's step after being beat up. He was bloodied and all of that. So his little black friend went up to the porch to see what had happened to him, to see what happened, what was going on. And in the process, this police officer, off-duty police officer, runs out from nowhere, and instead of snatching them both up or telling them to leave or trying to find out what's going on or whatever the case may be, he decides that he's going to tackle the little black boy. And he's going to pin him down, and he's going to choke him out, and he's going to threaten to kill him, and he's going to talk all of this junk to him while his wife, this Becky, comes on the porch talking about you came to the wrong house and put the phone down. And the man talking about you need to tell your friend to come back and sit right here, because they didn't want it to be recorded, because this is no way to act when you simply have kids walking across your yard. You tell them to get off of your property. You tell them to get off your, to leave. And then if they try to give you some trouble, then you can call the police or, handle it in whatever way you see fit to handle it, because they're trespassing. But this right here is ridiculous. And again, he's not doing it to the white kid, only the black kid. Let's move on.
Why you niggas are bugging?
Now here we already know what happened in the case of Luca down in Broward County. We already know what happened to him. You know how he was brutalized, pepper sprayed, thrown to the ground, head banged into the concrete, punched in the head, simply for picking up a telephone, simply for picking up the cell phone that had fallen out of the pocket of someone else that had actually been a part of an altercation. And I think since all the videos came out and all the outrage, I think they've dropped the charges against Luca, because remember, they actually charged this young man with assaulting a police officer and resisting arrest simply because he reached down to pick up a phone that was at his feet. Never raised his hand to anybody. His hands never moved from his side until after he was pepper sprayed. And we've all seen the many pictures of him sitting there handcuffed with blood streaming out of his nose and down the side of his face. But again, this is how these sissified, pussy, scary ass white police officers, these race soldiers, are treating our black teens in the United States. And it's always an excuse. It's always a reason. It's always, well, they shouldn't have been doing this, or they shouldn't have been doing that, or black thugs this, or the crime rate in the black community, or black on black crime. It doesn't have a jack thing to do with what's really going on. Doesn't have anything to do with how these young black men are being treated. Let's move on.
Just chill, bro. Reggie, hey, don't resist. Reggie, don't resist.
Do it. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, hey, bro, what the fuck?
Bro, don't get the fuck off me, bro. No, don't do it. Fucking touch him. I'm getting no fuck. Get out of my face right now. Bro, don't fucking touch him.
Bro, don't touch him like that, bro. Come on. Reggie.
I'm getting no fuck.
Now, as you see in this last and final clip, family, this time the little white kid actually interacted with the police, and he interacted with them in a very aggressive manner, as you can see. He was not afraid. He was not fearing for his life. When they started, when the police officer decided that he was going to put this little black kid in a chokehold for what, I don't know. I don't know why it was necessary for him to grab him by the neck like you do when you dealing with a puppy, or when you picking up a dog, or when you dealing with training a dog or whatever. Why he felt like that was necessary, I don't know, because the little dude, was just standing there with his arms folded. And then when the police officer told him to go and pushed him over to the car, you seen the clip. But you also seen the little white boy actually get physical with the police officer. All the police officer did was kind of pushed him back a couple of times. That's all he did. And then, got on his thing like he was calling somebody else and said, "You going to jail, you going to jail." That's it. There was nothing physical, no altercation. He didn't pull no gun on him. He didn't tase him. He didn't pepper spray him. He didn't jack him up. He didn't put his hands on him. No, nothing. And this little white kid was all up in his face, pushing him, cursing at him, letting him know this ain't gonna happen. This ain't gonna go down like this. It would be wonderful if we had some black folks that would do that when they saw other black people being mistreated by police officers. But they usually standing back with a cell phone, video and everything, and talking about don't do that, and screaming and hollering and yelling and all of that. But they're not going to step in when they see somebody being brutalized, or when they see somebody black being brutalized by a police officer. But this little young white boy, he said, this is not going to happen. This is not going to go down like this. So for once, we see somebody white using their white privilege to defend somebody black, because he knew he would be okay. He knew the police officer wasn't going to bother him. He knew the police officer wasn't going to jack him up and brutalize him the way he's seen so many other black young men brutalized. He knew it wasn't going to happen to him. So he stepped up to the plate. And he was like, no, this is not going to happen. I'm not going to stand here and watch this. I'm not going to stand here and video it while you do what you're doing. Now, in the first clip we saw with the other little boy that was down on the ground, his friend was terrorized. He was terrorized and he was terrified. You could hear the terror. You could hear the fear in his voice when he kept saying, we'll just leave. Come on, bro, let's just go. We'll just leave. We weren't trespassing. We weren't trespassing. He was scared. He was literally scared. But this other little boy, he was like, this is not fitting to go down in front of me. I'm not fitting to watch this. And until we see more white people white people standing up like this, until we see more white people stepping outside of white supremacy and stepping outside of racism and stepping outside of denial and stepping outside of excuses for why this is happening and excuses for why young black teenagers and young black kids are being jacked up and treated like this and brutalized like this by white police officers, until more white people step up to the plate and say, okay, enough is enough. We're not going to keep on watching this. Something has to be done about this. This has to stop. Until we see more white people doing what this little white kid did, it will continue to be this way. And black children, young black men will continue to be brutalized and murdered in the street for doing nothing. Because none of these kids had committed a crime. None of these kids had committed a crime. Luca didn't commit a crime. All he did was pick up a cell phone that fell at his feet. The little black boy that's down on the ground being held and being choked, all he did was walk across somebody's lawn. And if there were no trespassing signs up, if there were no trespassing signs up, then even that can't be considered as anything that he did wrong. But he just went because one of his little friends was sitting on the step and he was bleeding. I'll link the articles so that you can go back to the article and read. And I think it shows a picture of the little boy whose face was all bloody. So this guy is supposed to be a police officer. So instead of him being concerned about why this kid is on my step bleeding, the first thing he saw was a black guy on his lawn, and he went into attack mode like they all do. When they see somebody black, they go into attack mode because they were trained to go into attack mode. They were trained to attack black people first, ask questions later. So it makes you wonder, are these people human? Are these people honestly human, or is there something else going on? Are these mutations or something? Because human people don't do this. This is not the way human beings act. Human beings don't do all of this. They don't go to these extremes. They don't go to these lengths. And then for people that have the nerve to say that this has nothing to do with racism, okay, well, right here on this clip, you see a little white boy all up in the police officer's face. He cussing the police. He done pushed the police back a couple of times, the whole 9 yards. He is the aggressor. And he walks away from this without a scratch. He walks away from this simply being pushed back a little bit, simply having the police officer tell him to move and get out of the way, simply having the police officer tell him, you going to jail. Had he been black, he'd probably be dead right now. Or somewhere in the hospital, had he been black. Had this been a young black man or even a young black woman, they would either be tased, shot, dead, in the hospital, something. But they certainly would not have been able to walk away from it without a scratch. And I guarantee you white people are going to want to hail, oh, he's the right white savior and he's the white rescuer and all of that. In this instance, what he is a young man that realized that he was seeing something wrong. He was a young man that realized he was seeing something that he's probably seen entirely too much of already in his young life. And he did what most grown people won't do. He did what most adults won't do, black or white. He stepped up to the plate. He took matters into his own hands and stepped up to the plate and said, okay, enough is enough. I've seen enough of this. But the bottom line, for all of those people who come in my comments for the last 2 videos that I did about Luca, talking about if they were white kids, the same things would have happened, and it wasn't racism, and it wasn't white supremacy, and all of that, take a good look. And this is not the first video that I've seen where white people have confronted and have been physical and have been aggressive with the police, and they walked away from it. But here is your proof. That black people, as far as the police are concerned, are not treated the same way. Well, no, but in no area, in no arena in American society are blacks treated the same way as whites. But even a child knows when enough is enough. Even a child knows when it's not necessary, knows when you're doing too much. So he stepped up. And not only has he made the cops look like a bunch of sissies, he's also made a lot of these black men and women and a lot of white men and women look like a bunch of sissies. Because they won't do the same. They won't step in. They won't step up when they see somebody being abused, when they see somebody being brutalized. Like all those guys that stood around that night when Austin Sheffield was in Texas, viciously beating this black woman on the street, and all they did was stood around and took video of it, but nobody approached him. Nobody confronted him. When are the real men gonna stand up? Black and white. When are the real men gonna stand up, especially black men? When are we gonna stand up and stop being afraid? When are we gonna stand up and say enough is enough? When are we going to stand up and say no more? When are you going to stand up so that we don't have to see this right here? So that we don't have to see young black teenage boys and teenage girls and young black men and women brutalized in the street, left sitting on the side of the curb bleeding, or worse, in an ambulance on their way to the hospital, or in the morgue somewhere where their families have to go try to identify their bodies. And when it's all said and done, they didn't commit a crime. They didn't do anything wrong. And 9 times out of 10, if they did do something wrong, was it worth the death penalty? Had they been charged, had they gone to court, would they have been sentenced with death? That's the thing. Even if Luca or that young boy that walked across this man's yard, or this young boy in Florida whose friend defended him, whatever they did the punishment fit the crime? Did they deserve to be brutalized and treated like they were treated, like they were less than human, treated worse than animals? Because I've seen white folks treat their animals a whole lot better than black people have ever been treated in the United States of America. So I applaud this young man. I applaud this young man, for one, because friendship meant something to him. Friendship actually meant something to him. I applaud the young black boy that's all laid out and pinned down and everything on the man's lawn, because friendship meant something to him. It was his friend that was sitting on that step bleeding. So he went to see about his friend. And ended up all jacked up and pinned down and his life threatened and all of this, just because he walked on this man's yard to see what was going on with his friend, to see why his friend was sitting there all bloody. This young boy didn't think about black, didn't think about white. All he thought about was, this cop is handling my friend the wrong way. This cop is mistreating my friend, and he's doing my friend wrong. And because I know my friend is black, and I've seen it so many times, I've got to stand up and I've got to say something about it. So whether you be a white supremacist or racist, or whether you just, living in denial, or whether you just trolling when you come in my comments or whatever, here's the proof that there is a definite difference in the way teenage white children and the way teenage black children are treated by police officers. You have 2 instances right here. In the first instance, the white cop says that it was the little white kid that was in his yard first. The little white kid that was doing some foolishness. He makes it clear. Tell your little friend to come back here with his phone. It was because of what your little friend, and the little boy kept asking him, okay, well then why are you doing this to me? But even though he claims that it was the little white friend that was recording everything, that had been the one that was involved in the foolishness or whatever, it was still the little black boy that he decided that he was going to jack up and pin down and threaten and put a chokehold on and all of that. Even though he makes it clear in the video that it was the little friend that had really come to his house and was really, you know, in his yard first and all of that. So why didn't he handle the little white friend the same way? But when he decided he was going to jack somebody up, when he decided he was going to attack somebody, when he decided he was going to be vicious and brutal with somebody, it was the black kid. Same way in the last clip that we saw. The white man had no problem. The white police officer had no problem putting his hand around the little black boy's neck and and choking him and slamming him and talking about arresting him. But when the little white boy actually attacked him to push him off of his friend, you don't see no chokeholds there. You don't see no tasing. You don't see no grabbing and slamming down to the floor and holding down on the ground and banging heads into concrete and all that. You don't see any of that. All you see is him gently push the kids away. The little white kids gently push them away and then tell them, you better stop, you better stop. You're going to jail, you're going to jail. But they walked away without a scratch. In the case of Luca, they tried to act like they were afraid. Were you afraid because you were surrounded by black kids? What was there to be afraid of? Like Luca assaulted somebody, or like he had done something wrong, or like he had made a move towards the police officers. Well, this little white boy in this video didn't just make a move, he attacked the police. He got physical with the police. So don't dare tell me that there's no difference. Don't dare tell me that there's no difference in the way that blacks and whites are treated in America. And there's certainly a definite difference in the way they're treated by police officers. Being black will get you killed in America when you're dealing with these police officers, these race soldiers, these puny, terrified, scared, sissified race soldiers who, if they can't handle a situation, they need to turn their badges in and get off the force. But that's my rant for today. I just wanted to come on here. I just wanted to put together this little compilation. I just wanted to put together these 3 little videos. There are hundreds more out there. If I wanted to go through the process of really searching them, I could have come up with hundreds more videos showing the difference between how white kids are treated by police officers and how black kids are treated by police officers. The brutality, the excessive, unnecessary force that black teens, black people in America, especially black men, have to deal with from these police officers and these police departments in the United States. I could have come up with 100 videos, but I didn't need to. I didn't need to. These 3 show the whole story. They tell the whole entire story. And again, I want to commend both of the young men. The young black man in the first clip that was held and choked on the ground, and the young white man in the third clip defending his friend. I want to commend both of those young men for standing up for their friends and checking on their friends and being real friends. And I'd like to say to all the adults, this little boy right here, this little white boy right here ought to make all of y'all feel real, real bad and feel real, real low. That you can see this kind of injustice and you can see this kind of brutality and do nothing about it but hold a phone. So come on in the comments with the mess. Come on in the comments with the mess. I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you. But this right here has proven it all. There's nothing that you can say that will change what we can all see with our own eyes. This has been KM Steps with Undiluted TV. Of course, I'll be back with some more burning news and some hot topics and some more commentary. But until I see y'all again, y'all have a good night. Stay tuned and pay close attention to what's really going on. Good night.